What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy BT, and today we are going to be installing the Fogatti RV tankless water heater. This is the InstaShower 9 Pro, and we're going to be getting rid of the 12-gallon propane and electric one that we have now for this instant one, because that one just doesn't seem to be cutting it. So this is the area we're going to be working in today. So I'm just going to pull this off here to start process, but we're gonna have to go on the back side. We're gonna have to get some things disconnected here. We're gonna have to disconnect the gas line, and we're gonna have to take out this guy right here, and also take the inlet of water in, water out from the back side, along with the electrical. So a little bit involved, not too complicated. It's just more of, is everything gonna fit in appropriately where we need it? We're gonna have to cut this seal right here to get inside, but we're gonna take you along for the journey. All right, so let's go ahead and open up this box here and see what goodies we have inside. We've got, your standard literature, key points for successful installation, power control, power wires coming in. This is a 12-volt connection. Yeah, pretty straightforward. We should be okay, right? I believe so. Should be good. That's why we make these videos, so you can be good. All right, here's the control unit. We'll have to find a place to mount this. Either we'll mount it out here, or we'll put it inside and run the wires down. Got some screws. All right, so once we lift this up here, this is the unit. Okay, so this is the frame for around the product. I did have to opt and buy a larger door, so we'll see what that looks like in a minute here. I think the standard door comes on this, and then we'll have to swap out to the larger door. But let's go ahead and pull this out. So here is our product. Yep, okay, so I believe we're probably going to have to swap out the door on this. But that's all right, because I do believe we will need the larger door for this application here. All right, so let's go in and take a look at the actual product here. All right, so here we have some wiring here. So we know we're gonna have two connection points here. That's gonna go to the control. And then we've got our 12 positive and negative. You can see there, your black is your positive, your white is your negative. So pretty straightforward there. This is the spot for the water inlet, cold, as designated by the font color here and this color as well. We've got a spot here for our gas to come in. So if we just pull this off, see what we're dealing with here. And it looks like we should not need any extra connectors. We should be good with this here. So we'll keep that on for protection there. But if you look here, we're going to be screwing this on to this section here. So this is what we're going to disconnect, and that should screw right onto here. And then you've got your hot water. So not very complicated, just more a little bit of work, getting the old one taken out and putting in the new. So let's check out the front of the unit here. So here's our door handle. Let's see, we turn this. There we go. And that's the inside of the unit. So you can see here, we've got 4 screws. That's how easy it is to just swap out to a different door. But we'll see exactly how this fits once we slide it in there. From my measurements, I'm not actually sure if we will need the larger door or not. I'm not quite sure yet, but we'll find out. So here's all the information right here. So I think we should be good to go with getting this thing installed. So let's get the process started. All right, so before we get started, let's go ahead and check out this package here to see the larger door configuration. All right, so here is the larger door for the unit. I think this will probably be what we're gonna have to use here, but we will find out very shortly if this is the right door size for this. So there we can see that. Turn that. Here's the full setup there. So I guess we're gonna have to see if this is if we got the right components here for the installation. So for my application, I'm gonna have to pull this off to get to the back of the water heater. So if you can see back there is where I will have to disconnect the hot and the cold from the back of the water heater. All right, so here we are. We're going to take out the old water heater. We're first going to start by taking off the silicone here on the edge, kind of breaking that bead there. We're going to be using this tool to do so, and we're using a non-marring object so we don't mess up the exterior of the RV, but we're going to go ahead and get that out. And then if we look in right here, once we take this off, we've got 4 screws there. We've got some more silicone to break there. We'll probably have to use a knife for that, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So before we continue on with the rest, we're going to go ahead and release the pressure right here. This is going to spray out hot water, so make sure you do what you need to do to make sure you don't get burned. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect this gas line. Make sure you do turn off your propane before you disconnect. And make sure you get these 4 screws here before you pull it out. And last thing before we take this out, we're going to take out the anode and drain that out as well. All right, so while we wait for all 12 gallons to flush out of the tank here, we bought these connectors here. These will go on the back of the new water heater, so we'll need 2 of those. And then we've got our propane connection that should go right onto that spot there. We do have, whether we want to use the plastic or the copper, we've got both. Yeah, so that's it. So here's everything we need to basically get this thing hooked up. Once we figure out the electrical, we hopefully should be good to go. All right, so now we're going to get ready to pull this one out. I'm probably going to end up just cutting the lines to this because we're going to redo the lines to go in the back with the new connectors for the back of the new one. So we're going to go ahead and get that sorted out. All right, so here is where the cold water goes in. We're probably going to cut that further down and we're going to resplice in there. And then on this section here, this black line is where the hot water comes out. So again, we're probably going to cut off that connector right there and resplice in with some PEX, but we'll see how it goes. The last option is if we cut these close enough to the water heater and when the new one is put in, it has enough length to reach, we can reuse it. Other than that, we're still going to have to cut PEX. All right, so we got the lines cut, so we're going to go ahead and start pulling this thing out. And if you have one that has an electrical element, make sure you plug out the plug for the electrical before you pull it out. All right, here we can see the electrical lines that we're going to need to cut. So you can see the kind of space we're working with here. So here's the new unit, pretty small, pretty light. It's actually going to slide right here into the space like so. And you can see how much excess there is around it on the sides. So we will be using that bigger cover. But more importantly, we'll make sure that our lines can make it to the back of the unit once the unit is flush inside. All right, so here you can see the unit fit in here. What we did was we rerouted those wires a little bit and we're able to get closer to the unit. So we may not have to cut any PEX. We may just be adding the ends onto those and then putting them on. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to connect those now. Now that we know everything fits nice and easy, such a nice and simple light unit there. What we're going to do is prep everything here. We're still going to have to figure out the power connections for our unit here. So I think we're going to get that figured out before we button everything up. So we're going to have to test these lines here to figure out which wires are providing us with what. Since these were the wires that were here, I noticed that only 2 of them were actually terminated. The other one was just hanging. So we're probably just going to be using 2 of those wires there. So while we're getting everything together, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hook this up into its appropriate spots here. Now it doesn't matter which side you plug what into. Just go ahead and clip it into the appropriate side there. Snap those in like so. So this is good to go. So now all we need to do is confirm our positive and negative for the 12 volts and hook up the water line and the propane, and we are good to go with this install. All right, so with our power temporarily connected, we're gonna see here if we're getting 12 volts here. And we are currently not. I'm gonna go to the main panel and turn on the water heater. We may have to run a separate line to this that will give us 12 volts, but let's see if we can get 12 volts off that panel. All right, so we went ahead and turned on the water heater from the panel, and as we can see here, we are now getting the positive 12 volts that we need here. So we know we should be able to use this connection. As you can see here, if we reverse these, we should get a negative. So this is your positive on the red and your brown is the negative. All right, so we got a bunch of screws here. We've got 2, 4, 6. We've got 8 screws along the edge here that we have to take off in order to put on the larger door. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. All right, so off goes the smaller door. And then on goes the larger door. All right, now that we got the door set in place, we're gonna go ahead and do a test fit, test hookup, make sure everything works. All right, so the last thing we need to do before we prep for our test fit is to clean up this excess silicone on the edge. So now that we test fitted our unit, we know it's gonna fit, everything looks good. We're gonna go ahead and prep the unit for installation now with the butyl tape. So we're gonna go ahead and line here, basically around the entire edge and any spot where the screws are gonna be touching to keep it waterproof. And we can always score the rest of the edge off once we're done. So don't worry about any overlap on the edges. All right, now we're ready to drop it in place. All right, so as we're bringing the unit in, first I'm gonna hook up the gas line. I might have to leave the water lines till last. And then we're gonna hook up the electrical. The electrical we definitely need to hook up now based off its proximity here. Again, positive, negative. We've also got our controller hooked up here. And we're gonna just slide that in the backside to get that out the way. All right, so all we really need to do now is get access to our power wires, tuck this in close enough so that it can stay still and terminate our wires. All right, so we have our wires terminated now. Everything is nice and snug. Black is our positive, which is going to red. And white is our negative, which is going to brown. So we've got that all set. Now we need to connect our gas line in the back. You're not going to be able to see it from this angle, but I'm just going to go ahead, slide my hand in here, screw that wire in. And then, as mentioned, and then for the water lines, I'll probably have to go in and connect those from the backside. All right, so what we're going to do now, since we've got our connections nice and snug there, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to kind of put that in place temporarily. We're going to go on the other side, hook up our wires. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave this here temporarily. I'm going to go to the other side and screw in the water lines. So now that I'm back here, since the unit has to be flush all the way to the other end of the cutout, we're going to have to cut PEX anyway. So I'm going to have to cut off the terminations that I did and extend the lines a little further so that they can reach. All right, so it's a little hard for me to reach from the back side to get this thing, the water line in. So I'm going to pull this out just a little bit here. See if I can get this screwed in from the back, and then we will be ready to go. All right, with everything nice and set in place, we are basically ready now to terminate the install here. Even though I put the tape here, we're not actually going to be screwing anything here, so at least it does still keep it watertight for those holes. But we're going to go ahead and just kind of scoot this over into the spot where it's going to sit. So that's what the finished unit is going to look like there in place. So the last thing left to do before we put all the screws in is to fire it up and see if we get a fully functional and working unit with no issues. All right, so we lost a little bit of sunlight, but everything is running good. I've also got my little meter here to check to make sure we have no gas leaks, so we're looking good there. What actually happened is the 12-volt line that supplied from the control panel was actually faulting out, so I had to actually run a 12-volt line from a different source over to here. So night caught us, but we're basically almost done with the install. All we have to do is secure it up against the wall with some screws, put some silicone around it, and the job is done. All right, so we did run out of light while we were doing the work last time, but what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fill in the screw holes on the outer edge, get this thing secured to the RV, and then what we're going to do is put that bead of silicone around the edge, and we should be able to wrap up this job. All right, so now I'm just going to take my tool here. We're just going to clean off any of the excess butyl tape that's come out off the edge here so we can get a nice silicone bead in here. And once we're done with this, add the silicone and call it a day. Since there's a much larger gap in between here, because this sits here, this is sitting on the edge, and if you screw it in too tight, it's going to start to bend this piece. In order to not bend this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually push a little bit more butyl tape up in there to get a better seal before we finish off with the silicone. All right, now you can see kind of how that tape is up in there, filling in the gaps real nice, so nothing's getting in there, no water intrusion. Should be good to go from that perspective. So we're going to go ahead, Put a bead of silicone around the edge, and this job will be complete. So I'm going to use this to help clean up the edge. I'm going to take a wet paper towel, put this over here. Then I'm going to use the flat side and actually kind of work it on the edge to clean up that bead of silicone. All right, so after you've gone around the edge and you've got a nice clean bead, let's go ahead and clean up the excess and then let that thing set and we're good to go. So when you're going to go ahead and silicone that right side, it might make sense to take the door off first. It'll make the job easier. All right, so what we're going to do, I've got the mic set up right here. What we're going to do is we're going to crank the unit on so that you can hear it turn on. And then we're going to get that hot water coming out here. So we're kind of explaining what's happening as we go. So I'm going to hit the hot water on here. So the water's on. The unit, you're hearing the unit start up right now. Pilot light has lit. Flame is coming out. Heat's coming through there. It's heating up that water. And so now we're just waiting for the water to come out on this side. And if you look, you can kind of see some of the steam coming off. It takes a little bit of time for the water to make its way through the pipes. But once it comes through, that heat is kicking. Well, so there we are. We're pretty hot. I know you can kind of see the steam coming off of there. Yeah, it is pretty hot. So there you have it, folks. The instant tankless water heater. Look at it, yeah, you can see the smoke coming off of that. So the water is nice and warm, so no longer do we have to deal with... All right, so no longer do we have to deal with the 12-gallon setup, because you would use the shower, the water would run out, you're waiting for it to heat up. You know, you basically are running out of water. So I definitely think this is definitely going to be a better setup here, because it runs as you need it, and if it's not needed, it's not on. So it's either it's running the propane to heat it up or it's not. It's your boy BT. Hope you guys enjoyed this video so you can see the process of getting this installed. It really wasn't too complicated at all. I'm so happy to have gotten this project complete, but this one is done. Like I said, it's your boy BT. Thank you for checking out this video. I'll catch you guys on the next one.